Alright, so Havoc actually did end up getting some buffs just before patch 11.0.7 hits live servers this coming Tuesday. There was a quick announcement last night that a couple classes were getting some changes, some updates, some nerfs, some buffs. Thankfully, Havoc was included in that list. We kind of thought we were forgotten about, to be honest. It's been a while since we had any attention. We got some buffs here. They might seem a little low or a little insignificant on first glance. I'm not going to lie to you and say that they aren't, but there is more to it than it seems. We have Felblade is being increased by 10%. The Hunt initial damage is being increased by 10%. Chaos Strike by 10%. And then Demon's Bite / Demon Blades by 10%. They buff both of those depending on which one you use, if you're a Demon's Bite player or if you're a Demon Blades player. The main buff here and the most important one is Chaos Strike. So Chaos Strike is already pretty strong. It's gotten a lot of buffs coming into this expansion, and we have a lot of things that modify it. Now it's getting even stronger with another 10% buff. So this buff is actually more than it seems due to a talent we have in our spec tree and something in the Felscarred hero talent tree. So the first thing we have to look at is Chaotic Disposition, which increases the damage of anything that does chaos damage, essentially. And then we also have Burning Blades. Burning Blades basically accumulates damage done by either your Chaos Strikes, your Throw Glaives, or your auto attacks. All of that feeds into Burning Blades, which does a dot on the enemy. And Chaos Strike makes up a large portion of Burning Blades, probably around 80%. So whenever you look at your damage breakdown on a single target boss fight and you see Burning Blades up there, a lot of that is being done by Chaos Strike. Now, one thing I'll have to say is we have to be very, very careful buffing Chaos Strike, because if we keep buffing Chaos Strike, it could potentially push us into a situation where all we want to do is press Chaos Strike and never anything else in single target. We had this situation in Shadowlands. In pure single target, we would never ever press Blade Dance. You wouldn't press Blade Dance, you wouldn't press Death Sweep in single target. You would only spam Chaos Strike. We have to be very careful that we don't end up there again. At the moment, if you take a sim and you make it do exactly that, if you tell it to just Chaos Strike, it's actually only 100k DPS behind a proper rotation. So we're definitely inching towards it, but we're not quite there yet. And luckily our spec tree isn't really set up in a way that allows us to easily do this, because there's no way we'd be able to avoid all of the Blade Dance talents and just get what we need for Chaos Strike, because we'd have to go down the right side, get Trail of Ruin, we'd have to get Dancing with Fate to get down into Relentless Onslaught. There's some things in the way that sort of prevent that from happening. We also wouldn't want to do that because we would suffer defensively, since Blade Dance gives us an absorb through deflecting dance. Now, as a side note, if you're somebody who is still using Glaive Tempest in Mythic Plus, we might have a different situation on our hands there. So if you're using Glaive Tempest in Mythic Plus and you are in like a pure single target situation, maybe you're fighting a boss with no adds, just one boss the whole way, in that case, after this buff, it's probably worth more to just press Annihilation now instead of Glaive Tempest. So you would stop pressing Glaive Tempest in single target completely, because Annihilation is just going to do more. Now, if there is ever two targets, if there's more than one target, if you're fighting a pack of mobs, of course you want to press Glaive Tempest, but in pure single target, we might need to start considering pressing Annihilation over Glaive Tempest. Now, in terms of the other abilities that were buffed this time around, like I said, it is pretty insignificant. It's kind of funny because the things that get buffed are almost the meme buffs that we've received in the past that everyone was very confused and rolled their eyes at. Now, the reason that they're selecting these abilities specifically to sort of tune is because those are the only things that are pure single target. So those are the things that they can buff without also affecting our AoE, right? So things like Demon Blades, things like Felblade, those are all pure single target things, ultimately aren't going to affect our AoE. If they were trying to increase our single target by buffing something like Blade Dance, of course, that's going to affect our AoE as well. Same with Immolation Aura, Rage Fire, Throw Glaive, all of those things are AoE, right? So they have to be very careful, and they only have so many knobs that they can turn without affecting our AoE as well. Now, something else to consider is that there is kind of a hidden downside to the buffs to Felblade and the Hunt that many people might not realize or think about. So those abilities right now are very commonly pulling threat, because they're abilities that you press so early in a pull, almost immediately, and they do decent damage, substantial damage, enough to potentially pull threat, and then you die. So now that those are getting buffed even further, an extra 10% on both of those, I think it might start happening a bit more often, so just something to keep in mind. So you're probably wondering how these buffs are going to affect your overall damage in single target and AoE scenarios. So In single target, this buff is actually going to give us around 4 to 5% increase in single target, which is actually not that bad. That's decent. I think we do need a bit more, but hey, 4 to 5% in single target is pretty good. Now in AoE, it's giving us around 1 to 1.5% in AoE, which is kind of insignificant, you know, just from buffing the single target abilities that we use in our downtime. In an AoE sim, it's going to give us 1 to 1.5%. But the good thing is, in Mythic Plus, where we struggle the most is the in-between, right? In between our big burst and in single target boss fights. Even though this is only giving us a 1 to 1.5% in AoE, it's going to help us in keys by quite a bit because we're getting those really low points that we have bumped up just a little bit more. So you have to think of it more on the greater level rather than just what the sim is telling you. Now, my guess is that Blizzard is probably a little hesitant to buff too much before seeing what kind of impact the Circe's Circlet ring will have that we're getting in 11.0.7. Ultimately, I don't think that's going to be that big for us. The rings and the gems are time gated over 6 weeks, and by the end of those 6 weeks, the ring sim's just slightly better than best in slot rings at max eye level. Yes, we will be using that ring. No, we won't be using it right away, and no, it won't boost your damage a ton like the Onyx Amulet did in Dragonflight. But I'll keep you guys posted more on that as we go through it. We're getting those rings this coming Tuesday, and I'm sure there's going to be more buffs, so we'll keep you posted as it happens. All right, thank you so much for watching, guys. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you next time. Peace.